President of the United States, Donald Trump, has had a very public feud with websites like Twitter in the past few months. And today there was another shot kind of fired, I guess, in that whole battle, ironically on Twitter by Donald Trump. And honestly, I think it's something that needs to be talked about because here in the United States, internet freedoms, online censorship, and things like that have become more and more of, I would say, like a prevalent topic in discussion. It's gotten to the point, it's like with net neutrality, right? When that whole thing was kind of going down just a few years ago, and even really still today to a smaller extent, but when that whole thing was kind of like a huge topic or whatever, people really started to finally research and vocalize their opinions on the online atmosphere that pretty much all of us use in our daily lives. Now, what a lot of people don't know is a lot of the freedoms that we have with the internet, and a lot of the reason that the internet even is what it is today is due to a few key laws in US legislation that have helped kind of formulate the internet in good and bad ways, to be honest. Obviously, the internet's not perfect. It's not a perfect medium by any stretch of the imagination. In all reality, something as large as the internet is impossible to perfect. There's always going to be an issue with it. When you have billions of people using something, and obviously the laws are applied differently in all these different jurisdictions, the relative anonymity and stuff that you have with it, there's going to be a lot of issues, but Donald Trump is now targeting one of the key laws that have helped make the internet what it is today because of what he claims to be anti-conservative bias from websites like Twitter. So to kind of give you guys a little bit of backstory into what kind of, I guess, sparked this entire thing. Back in May of 2020, Donald Trump made a bunch of statements on Twitter talking about mail-in voting, which is controversial here in the United States. On one side of the argument, people want mail-in voting, especially during the pandemic, because they think it's going to be a safer option than going and physically voting in person. A lot of people want mail-in voting because they think that it's more convenient, and they also think that it's very safe, and that it would actually expand the amount of people who actively participate in voting in the United States. Now, on the other side of the argument, and this is where Donald Trump traditionally seems to kind of sit himself, they think that mail-in voting is easily manipulated, I guess is a good way to put it, that it's fraudulent, that people will fake votes, they will stuff ballots. A lot of Republicans/conservatives are also really against the idea of like undocumented immigrants and people like that going and voting, and they think that mail-in voting is one of the ways that undocumented people are going to, I guess, sway the election somehow. Now, when he made all these statements on Twitter, the website actually put a little, I guess, fact-check claim under his tweets. So basically, after he made all these statements, there was a little thing basically saying, like, get all the facts about mail-in voting and ballots or whatever, right? It was pretty much unavoidable. It sat right under the tweet, and it basically led to a bunch of information that Twitter was pushing out about mail-in ballots that basically made the claim that Donald Trump was misleading people through his tweets and that it was sensationalized claims that were not backed up in reality. Now, this warning was actually introduced a few weeks before this had even happened due to misinformation about the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this really pissed off Donald Trump because obviously this was a social media platform like Twitter just vehemently going against what he had said and providing counter information or counterpoints against what he had said. And he saw this as anti-conservative, anti-Trump bias, which I think it's fair to make at least a small argument, if not even a bigger argument, about the fact that there is some sort of anti-conservative bias on social media. I think that, even if you're maybe not on the right wing in any way, right, you can kind of see what they're saying. You can kind of make that argument to a certain extent. But Trump basically made this out like Twitter was suppressing his freedom of speech and making it to where he couldn't, I guess, inform people on what he was saying or anything like that. And after all this started to kind of boil up, actually, Donald Trump signed an executive order on preventing online censorship, also known as EO 13925. And this basically attempted to regulate a law called Section 230, okay? And we're going to go ahead and get into this part of it because Trump is now kind of attacking Section 230 again today, talking about how it needs to be full out repealed, okay? Now, I think we can all agree that Trump wants Section 230 revoked or repealed because of his own reasoning, right? He thinks that he's being censored by these platforms. He takes it as an attack on him and maybe his administration and his side of the political sphere. That's what this is about. which, is understandable, right? It's not like I can't see why he would ever say something like this. It's understandable. But this Section 230 that Trump is wanting to have revoked actually was a massive reason that the internet even became what it is, and it provides a ridiculous amount of freedoms to the internet. As a matter of fact, it's often referred to basically as the free speech clause of the internet. So to put it very simply, the best way that I can here, Section 230 is actually just a smaller piece of another act of law called the Telecommunications Act of 1996. It fits into the Communications Decency Act, which is Title V of the Telecommunications Act of 1996. And Section 230 basically provides immunity for website publishers from third-party content. Basically meaning like, let's say you ran a blog, right? And you wrote something and you were like, I don't like pickles on my hamburger, right? Well, let's say somebody came into the comments and said, I don't know, like, fuck pickles, I hate pickles, they suck. And then someone else was like, oh, I love pickles. This website is BS. I hate this website. Basically speaking, those comments can't really be held against the people who run the website, run the blog, whatever it is. That's a really terrible example, but it's really, I guess, I think it makes a good point. But now it also provides what is called the Good Samaritan protection from civil liability from websites and things like that, your ISPs and whatnot, where they basically will remove or moderate third-party material that they deem obscene or offensive, even if it's actually constitutionally protected, as long as it's done in good faith. So, on Twitter, you have the right to say things constitutionally, right? Like, I can say in this video, fuck the US government, I hate the government, I think that the government is overbearing and that they attempt to strip our liberties away from us at every given turn, simply to do it and have more control. I can say that, and guess what? That's constitutionally protected, The government can't kick my door in tomorrow and fucking arrest me for hate speech against the government. But if I say some kind of wild shit on Twitter that's deemed offensive, like I can't really say it because I don't really want the Secret Service showing up at the door or anything crazy, so if you go and make threats or you post offensive content or obscene shit on their website, basically they have the right to moderate or remove that, as long as it's what's considered done in good faith, basically meaning that they didn't have some ulterior motive behind it. It's not like, Twitter takes down what you're saying because of their own political bias or whatever, because obviously that wouldn't be done in good faith. And this is kind of the argument that Donald Trump and his camp is trying to make. They're trying to basically make the point that these big tech companies are no longer acting in good faith. They're not moderating things that are being said on their platforms because it's deemed obscene or offensive, or even if it's constitutionally protected. They're basically making the argument that, Twitter is putting these fact-checking marks and trying to kind of skirt the line with Donald Trump simply because, they don't agree with his political views, or they don't agree with the things that he says. Now, it's hard to definitively prove without, a shadow of a doubt that that's what's actually going on here, simply because if you really consider it, like, Twitter is going to be able to hide behind Section 230, which is why Donald Trump wants it removed. And the problem with that is, even if you remove something like Section 230, you're not just hitting big tech companies. If you get rid of Section 230, sure, Twitter might be a little bit more open to lawsuits and things like that, and they might just get ass blasted, but what about that family whose livelihood depends on their family's small blog? You know what I'm saying? They are now, they don't have these protections. They can get hit with lawsuits over something stupid. And at the end of the day, I don't think it's even really going to work out the way that Trump wants it to, because, if you think about it, Twitter is basically shielded from their moderation at this point, right? Like, if they take down something that, is deemed wrong in good faith, Section 230 is there to defend them. But if this is no longer here, I would think that Twitter would now be a lot more proactive in getting rid of content that they deemed bad or whatever, simply because they don't want to deal with lawsuits. So, I think at a certain point, they might just go up and just say, fuck it, we're deleting Donald Trump's Twitter account. We have no protection from moderating him, so why even have him on the platform in the first place? And that's the kind of problem that I think is going to get ran into here. We're going to see one of the basic principal freedoms of the internet removed because the president doesn't like that Twitter is fact-checking him or providing information that goes against what he says. I think that the good definitely is outweighed by the bad, probably 100-fold in a situation like this. Section 230 is something that needs to be defended on the internet. People need to have the right to, moderate things and be able to protect them and their communities from things that they say are bad. And there needs to be, immunity from liability for providers and things like that publish information by third-party users. Because at the end of the day, like, I shouldn't be responsible for something that someone in my comment section says. Neither should, YouTube, honestly, or the internet service providers. Why should they be liable for what somebody on the internet says? It kind of takes away a lot of individual accountability, and it's going to lead to a more Wild West kind of bullshit with the internet that I don't think is going to work out well at all. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel, follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus. Make sure to check out Shop Opti down below. Thank you to my channel members. Your support helps my channel tremendously. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, standing up for Section 230 and signing out.